Hey everybody, this is Perch. What is failing upwards? Well, typically failing upwards means even though you do a bad job, the company promotes you anyway. Usually, at least once upon a time, it meant that you were incompetent, but the company didn't want to fire you, but they want to get you out of the way of actual work, so you wouldn't screw things up. So you'd get promoted to management, and then you'd just sit in an office and you'd go on hibernation. This did happen in real life. This wasn't just a TV plot or a trope. There were certainly people who either they were believed to be strategically valuable for the company, or they'd been with the company a long time and they didn't want to get rid of them, or for various reasons. And what they would do is they'd promote them into a position of individual contributor with a high salary. So you're basically paying them to shut up and paying them to kind of get out of your hair. And it definitely occurred. I'm sure it still occurs in plenty of places. This idea of failing upward. But what's failing upward for comics? Well, this viewer writes in and has a theory on that. So it says, "Hey Perch, how does failing upwards or sideways happen? Vita is a lightning rod for this discussion for good reason. See, you're saying it. This is from the. I'm reading the letter as it's written. Can't deal with the pronouns. By the way, I realize I have a dry sense of humor, but I'm often amazed by I make some joke, and then people in the comments are like, "I am taking it 100% seriously," and it's like, what? It was obviously a joke. I did the Ezra Miller thing, and I was like, I'm gonna respect the pronouns of Ezra Miller, and he wants to be called they them, which of course is that there's a joke in that sentence alone. But then I intentionally started screwing up his name, but kept the pronouns correct. And a couple of people in the comments got it and they thought that was funny, but a bunch of people are like, "You are pronouncing Ezra Miller incorrectly. I do not understand why you do not do more quality control on this." I'm like, damn it, you unhumorless bastards. Anyway, so sorry. I'm reading the mail again. Back to the mail. She entered comics at the same time as Philip Kennedy Johnson and Ram V, both of whom most would agree are better writers, but she's had more titles than either and produced more credited issues than them. When Green Arrow had his anniversary, she was somehow given a gig, but creators like Neil Adams, Dan Jurgens, even Kevin Smith weren't given a spot on that book, despite contributing more to the character and all being active in comics at the time. Smith, for example, had done a story for Detective 1000. There are creators who entered comics before Vita and are still in who haven't had as much work as her. There are people in comics who have consistently mediocre to poor sales but keep getting work while others are left without, like 2021 news that DC was ignoring Tomasi. Obviously applies to more people than just Vita. I'm not picking on her, but she's the best example of it. Okay, so why does this happen? Well, I mean, the key reason is it's not about the published work, it's about the friend. So in this case, Vita has friends within editorial or people who believe that Vita's name, putting Vita on a book, is going to create goodwill toward them or opportunity or whatever. There's a belief that, and some of it is, I'm sure, the demographics of Vita, the non-binary. I'm sure that does play into it as well. It's all of these things that get going, but most of all, it's that the editor is friendly with Vita, and so the editor is going to hand the friend the work. And some of these other writers are lesser known. An editor who's working on the Green Arrow anniversary gig most likely has zero idea of how to get a hold of Kevin Smith. No concept. And that same editor, and I'm speculating here, I don't know for sure, is probably thinking, well, Dan Jurgens and Neil Adams, they're old. They're super old. I mean, Neil Adams unfortunately has passed away, but I mean, they're nobody likes those creators anymore because they're old fashioned. We need to appeal to that new audience, and the new audience needs new talent they can relate to, like Vita, and not talent like Neil Adams or Dan Jurgens. And of course, that's silly thinking, but that's who's to blame there? Well, the editor. The editor is to blame for misunderstanding their audience, misunderstanding the people most likely to come in and buy a Green Arrow anniversary issue are going to be people who've been collecting Green Arrow for 30, 40 years. That's going to be your bread and butter creators. Now, maybe the editor knows this and is just saying, well, they're going to buy it no matter what. So I might as well take a chance on pulling in a new audience. But then that gets to the, what proof do we have that Vita actually pulls in a new audience? And frankly, anyone. I think you should look, if you're an editor, if you're somebody who's curating a line, you should look at skepticism at all creators to say, which one of these is going to pull in an audience that I do not have before? For example, if you're an editor and you're like, I am going to get Keanu Reeves in to write a comic book. Does he know how to write a comic book? Who knows? But if I put Keanu Reeves as a writer to a comic book and I let him do something that kind of vaguely fits what he does, like we're going to do Shang-Chi storyline, and Shang-Chi is going to, be on the run in a John Wick style story, and Keanu Reeves is going to write it. All right, that's going to pull in a bunch of people who want to see what Keanu Reeves can do, and that's going to work. So therefore, you can look at that and say, all right, I've got my Shang-Chi audience, whatever that is, they're going to come in for this. I've got my audience, just Marvel collectors who probably will come in because it's a new #1 issue. And then I've got a group that is following Keanu. So that those three together, that's my target audience. Great, I can do something. But you should be asking yourself that question for everything. If you want Scott Snyder to come in and write a book for you, all right, what audience is Scott Snyder going to pull? Okay, he's probably going to pull, classic comic book collectors who, have no Scott Snyder because he's been in the business for a while. So he's a known entity, and you're going to get them. You're going to get those speculators. And you're probably going to get, people who are fans of his Batman work. So therefore, if you were DC and you were bringing him in, you'd want to find a way to spiritually connect. Hey, Scott Snyder, guy who wrote Death Metal and Batman with Capullo, he is now on this new title, and it's going to have a similar, if you like Batman, you're going to love this. That's what you'd want to do in order to get that audience. With Vita, as just an example, not to continuously pick on Vita, but what is that premise? Okay, Vita's going to be on New Mutants. The New Mutants collectors who just need to buy every issue, they'll come in. The people what does Vita have take like Vita versus Neil Adams. If you're going to do a Green Arrow story, Neil Adams is going to bring in a bunch of people who are familiar with Neil Adams doing Green Arrow. And so that there's a draw there. If Vita's doing a Green Arrow story, what is it that Vita's bringing? Vita's bringing people who are fans of Vita, but you're not getting the people who are Green Arrow fans. So that's just, and again, none of this is to insult anyone. Well, maybe it's insulting the editors, but I mean, that's how you need to think about these things. You got to put it in perspective of, okay, if I make this move, what's it going to bring in? But that's largely not happening. It is, Ram V is certainly getting a lot of titles now. I think he's popular, and he's shown that he has some ability to bring in an audience and make sales. So he's become not a safe bet for comics, but one that people believe is good. Philip Kennedy Johnson is a very safe bet, but unfortunately DC is not promoting a lot of his work, and they need to promote it more and hopefully give him a bigger platform, because I think he's clearly, but I think they like him in general. But for whatever reason, the editors and the people in management at DC have decided that Vita brings an audience, and they want that audience. I don't know that there's any indication that audiences exist based on some of the sales of the books Vita's been on. Trial of the Amazons did not burn through the charts, and New Mutants isn't doing very well. So, I'm not saying, hey, quick, give her no work. Give Vita. Oh, see how I did it myself. Give Vita no work, but you need, at the end of the day, you do need to make some decisions based off sales, or you won't have you won't have a business to run. So, unfortunately, the gross, silly answer is, well, the editor is friends and picking their friends, which is the way a lot of comic decisions get made. And I mean, some of it's justified with but this is going to show that we're an equal opportunity employer who, are hiring black and brown people who are non-binary. I mean, it's something. I don't. Other than you get to feel good about doing social good in that sense. That by itself is not going to bring in comic readers. So you do have to balance these things, or pretty soon you've done a lot of quote unquote social good, but you have no sales because you forgot about that part where you actually need to sell the comics at the other end. But we'll see. I mean, my prediction, if you want my gut honest answer, I think Vita's probably in that late third quarter, entering the fourth quarter of Vita's career in comics. I think there's a lot less excitement around Vita than there used to be, and a lot of that has to do with the fact that the books don't move. So you can get excited about the person, you can get excited about whatever social good you think you're doing, but if the books don't actually sell, eventually it takes a long time for it to happen. Eventually things catch up, and here you are. But anyway, that's my answer. I don't know if that's satisfactory or not, but there you go. That's what I've got. Thanks for the question, and thanks for listening.